Did M&Ms help us win the war in the Pacific in World War II? Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Andy Yardley. I'm a high school history teacher in Arkansas, and I like to talk about the things that they don't teach you in the classroom. M&Ms are pretty much a household staple in America today. M&Ms come in a wide variety of flavors, my personal favorite being peanut butter M&Ms. Today's episode, we're going to be looking at the military history of M&Ms. So in order to look at M&Ms, we actually have to go back, all the way back to 1936. This is before World War II, but there was another war going on that had a few World War II implications to the Spanish Civil War, which lasted from 1936 to 1939. So while over in Spain, Forrest Mars Sr., which is the son of Frank C. Mars, noticed a chocolate ration that the Spanish were giving to their soldiers, which was coated in kind of this little glassy, wax, sugary type casing that allowed the chocolate to not melt by the time it got to the soldiers. See, Spain kind of has a little bit of a warmer climate. It's very coastal with the Atlantic Ocean to its west, but then it also has a little bit of a Mediterranean type climate with the Mediterranean Sea to the south. So its climate was very hot and humid, and a lot of times before soldiers could get to their chocolate, it was already a melted mess, which is really gross. So Forrest Mars Sr., he saw that these soldiers were getting these little chocolate pellets that were covered in this sugar coating that allowed the chocolate to stay pretty solid before it melted, and that gave him a really good idea. What if the army already had a ration that was relatively the same? So when he gets back to the United States, he starts working on a patent to kind of have this sugar-coated chocolate. Now, there were some patents already for this because you had treats, which were a candy at the time, that were very similar to M&Ms. So he had to come up with his own process for covering the chocolate in this sugary casing. Once he did, he was able to apply for a patent, basically be able to secure himself a place not only in candy history, but in military history. Now let's get into the military history aspect of the M&M. So when Forrest Mars Sr. gets back home and he gets the idea for the M&M, he actually has to have a conversation with the Hershey Company. You see, Hershey at the time was the only chocolate manufacturer in the United States that basically kind of had the monopoly on chocolate because they were also used in war rations. In World War I, Hershey used chocolate to give to the soldiers that went off to the trenches in Europe, and they still had a pretty good connection with the United States government to that they were the only chocolate company that rationed chocolate to the U.S. Army. And with the M&M, he believed that this would be an easier and better way for soldiers to receive their chocolate ration. You see, the military use of chocolate in army rations is actually a relatively new concept. Hershey made a deal with the US government to be their only chocolate supplier, and they started adding what was called the D ration to military rations in 1937. It was a very thick, long chocolate bar that soldiers would get with some of their other military foods, MREs or anything of that nature. But, however, chocolate has been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years, used primarily from the New World to the Old World during the Age of Exploration. Chocolate has always been a very popular confectionery for many, many different groups of people. The rich used it as kind of an after dinner or after lunch dessert. Chocolate has always been used to kind of help people who are feeling depressed or sad, to give them kind of a little bit of a morale boost. And that's exactly why the US government commissioned Hershey to make chocolate for their soldiers. Chocolate had two uses for the army rations. One was to kind of give a little bit of an emotional boost to soldiers, but it also had an energy boost as well. It was used to kind of give them a little bit more pep in their step. You see, chocolate has natural caffeine in it, so it was kind of like being able to drink a cup of coffee when there wasn't coffee around. So now let's fast forward a few years. The year is 1941 and the day is December 7th. If you paid attention in your U.S. history class, you may know that is a pretty important date. FDR called it the day that will live in infamy because it was the Japanese Empire's attack on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii in the Pacific. You see, up until this point, America had a sense of neutrality during World War II. They recognized that Hitler was not a good person, but they also didn't really want to be involved in another world conflict because they were still dealing with the Great Depression. However, on December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese did attack Pearl Harbor, it pushed America to join World War II. Coincidentally, 1941 was also the year that the official M&M was created, but it wasn't created for personal or commercial use. Because the M&M used Hershey's chocolate for the inside filling of the sugar-shelled casing, they were kind of property of the U.S. government, which was a really good opportunity to test how popular and how well M&Ms would be with U.S. soldiers. By December 9th, 1941, Congress had approved to officially declare war on Japan and all of its allies, which included at the time the USSR, Germany, and Italy, all fighting in Europe with the exception of Japan. Their main focus was to kind of push back America's involvement in the Pacific. Up until 1941, though, many soldiers in their rations still had big regular-sized chocolate bars. Once America got more involved in the Pacific Theater, then we kind of switched over from the D ration, which was again the Hershey chocolate bar, to M&Ms. M&Ms didn't melt in the tropical Pacific heat in the islands during the spring and summer months, and they also stayed relatively refreshing through the slightly cooler fall and winter. With those M&Ms, more and more soldiers were able to have a morale boost, have a little bit of energy, and plus M&Ms are small and you're able to package them more in a smaller package without worrying about them melting all over the other food or other army people's gear. So this made chocolates not only a really great commodity, but also a little bit of a trading item. That's why I love M&M's. Dadgum. So after the attack on Pearl Harbor, there was a little bit of a down period, and also the U.S. wasn't quite 100% prepared for the war in the Pacific. Once Pearl Harbor took place, the United States lost its colony of the Philippines, which was an island pretty close to Japan, and actually pushed the United States military and Navy out of the Pacific with this loss of the Philippines. The Japanese military was afraid that they were going to use the Philippines as a launching point for attacks on the mainland Japan, and well, they proved to be right. The Philippines at first was a huge asset for the U.S. Navy because they had military bases, both Army and Navy, and also with the upcoming of the Air Force, there was a lot of military equipment that was there in the Philippines. So after the loss of the Philippines, we kind of have to start from scratch, starting with a little island that quickly changed the war in the Pacific in America's favor, called Midway. So by the time we get neck deep in the Pacific Theater, soldiers are only wanting two things: for the war to end soon and good old-fashioned M&Ms. Soldiers loved M&Ms going onto the front lines because, again, it was a quick and easy way to get some well-deserved chocolate and also a good commodity and treat to have around. And by the time that World War II is over, the victory in Japan in September 2nd, 1945, and soldiers went back home, one of the things that they missed dearly was M&Ms in their ration packs. So a couple years later, in 1947, they start selling M&Ms out to the public, which had a really popular and already made fan base with U.S. Army veterans coming back from World War II. So there you have it, the brief but long-standing military history of M&Ms. Do you think that M&Ms may have helped our soldiers win the Pacific Theater and maybe even the European theater as well? Well, I like to think so. Who can't say no to these delicious little treats? I just can't stop myself. They're so good. Dadgum. Want more historical videos? Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified of all of my latest videos, from live streams with friends to videos just like this one, talking about the hidden parts of history that most people aren't taught in high schools. Well, until then, I hope to see you soon, and you have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.